how many great agents have you met that never got the opportunity to be great agents because they quit first? When you've lost everything, you're not afraid of losing everything. I've never struggled for a client to understand my value.
Welcome to a private conversation with me, Steve Robbins. I'm sitting down with some of the biggest names in Indianapolis real estate. I've enjoyed these conversations immensely, and I hope you will too. A big thank you to Executive GM Ian Soroyan and his whole team for hosting us at Cunningham Restaurant Group's Commission Row and Mel Speakeasy, located in downtown Indianapolis within the Pacer Sports and Entertainment Complex. Check out the show notes to learn more. And now, my conversation with the inspirational team lead of Morris Property Group, Kyle Morris. Well, let's talk real estate a little bit. So,
Real estate?
well, we could. So,
Okay.
and I want to, certainly kind of come back to the beginning of your time in real estate. But what has 24 been like for you in real estate, and 23? How the last few years, I guess, been in real estate for you? It's been a kind of a weird couple of years. We had the pandemic, which was wild, and we thought it was going to be terrible. It ended up being kind of great for real estate.
How many agents do you know that are fatigued?
A lot.
And so I think that's a real thing.
For yourself.
For myself. And it's not just real estate. It's like, because my business has grown so much.
Yeah.
And I do so much other things, and I do have a family, and I coach and I do all these other things. So this feels spread thin sometimes. 2023, I'll tell you this, I am having the most fun currently that I've had in real estate over the past 2 years. I had to do some changes to my team, and I let some people go. I was starting to feel like a hostage on my own team that I ran.
What does that mean? Why?
I felt like people were, I don't want to say fighting. I felt like I was swimming upstream, I guess. So I ask a lot on my team of inclusion and help amongst each other, right? That's one of the reasons why I built it. And I wasn't getting equal assistance, and that was starting to cause some infighting, and some of it was family situations or what. There's a lot of dynamics that go into that, but I was having to put out a lot of internal fires, and I just wasn't happy. It was really hard for me to focus on the things I needed to grow the business while I'm just trying to keep the seams from bursting. And so I made some changes. Hardest thing I've done in the business. And then I brought somebody else on it, and it was the energy I needed. It's the energy the whole team needed, and bought into kind of what we do in our vision. And it's just been amazing ever since. When I did that, I lost about $8 million in production, and I thought we were going to go down, and we had a record year, right? So I cut my team by 40% and had a record year. That's how much culture matters, right? And even this year, May was really low for us, quite honestly, historically speaking. And I thought we would be down. Interest rates are high, but I always feel like I'm just getting lucky, I guess, if that makes sense. And, in September, we had already pinned to have a record year for this year over last year's record year. And that was last year, I think in December, we're if we do this and this, this will be our best year ever. In September, I was we've already beat last year, and it's September type stuff. So I'm having a lot of fun with my dad passing away. I do think
He passed away this year?
Yeah, he had a heart attack in February. And work helped me a lot, because it's really easy to get hyper-focused on the tasks and completions and to-do lists and problem solving, right? I can remember looking up at the end of April, and because it happened in February, it was 21st of February. And I couldn't remember anything from February to the end of April, even though I'd been present, I'd sold over, an over $1 million home, I'd done a lot of business. I'd taken a vacation on spring break, and I couldn't remember any of it.
But the whole time, your dad passed away.
Right, but the whole time during it, I thought I was really present and handling everything really well. But I think I just really had my head down and was just trying to survive, telling myself something else, it almost like a survival instinct. And that, it helped to recognize that. And then, it's just been busy besides May ever since. And September is recovery month. And so we did a lot. My team did for recovery month this year. And we had a lot of business. And, I went at one point, like, I think 4.5, 5 weeks without a day off. Right. And
wow, that's a long.
It was fatigue.
That is.
It got to the point where, and this is so unhealthy, but like I was so busy, so overwhelmed, I quit asking for help, even from my team or my wife or my friends, because it was more of an inconvenience for somebody to say, let me think about it, or maybe, or no,
right,
than it was to just do it myself. And like I got through it all, but I felt the effects of that for sure. And then I think I dealt with about 2 weeks of like, I was just burnt out and kind of, I don't know, suffering long-term effects of it. And I took a trip with some of my guys. We went whitewater rafting. Almost died. It was amazing.
Where did you go?
Went to the Gully in West Virginia.
Quick story. I whitewater rafted once. It was on the lower Gully. And
which is intense for a first time.
It was awesome. And we were going to do the upper Gully the next day.
Yeah.
And about an hour in front of us on the lower Gully, someone had fallen out and died. And so there was, and so there was a group. So we didn't end up doing it because, there was people that were worried about that, obviously. Yeah. So, and that same thing happened to you? Someone died that day? Or
No, nobody died that day, but it was really weird. So we did class 3s last year, not in Alla. And we're like, look at us, we're whitewater rafting. And so we're like, we can do anything. So we signed up to do this. Night and day, for the record. Close, like how dangerous it is.
It was a blast.
It was so much fun. When I was out there, I got a phone call that I had to put my mom on hospice. So I was around like 11 of my best friends. It was really good for me to be surrounded by that and have the conversations I needed to have. But the class 5, like we did the marathon. So we did the upper and the lower Balzac.
Love it.
And like for 30 minutes, you're sitting there with your guide talking about all the people who die. And,
right.
And you're just like, what are we doing? And then we got thrown in the water twice. And both times looking back, relative safe areas. But like when you get thrown in the water after talking about everybody dying for 30 minutes, you're like, I'm dying. Like you panic. I don't care.
Yeah.
They say like get in a battle ball and float to the surface and all this. And they're like, swim left. Because if you go right, you're like, it's just so much information.
I did the deal where they said if you get caught underneath the raft, I was thrown out. If you get caught underneath the raft, walk yourself back. I had to walk myself back, and it all worked out.
So that happened to me on a lower Gully.
Okay.
And it was like this little one I didn't even expect. And they intentionally did it. I just didn't know. And I came up under the boat, and I was like, this is how we die. It's like,
you made
come up under it, and you're like,
it's definitely a thrill.
It's a thrill.
So how did that trip help?
Well, because like I had some guilt. Like, should I come home? Right. Because I didn't know the immediacy of any of it at the time. Right. Like my mom's had MS since I was born. Right. She's been bedridden.
She's still alive.
She's still alive.
Okay.
She's been bedridden since I was about 21, so like 24 years. Something like that. And my dad was her primary caregiver. So when he passed away, so now she's in a facility and all this other stuff. And, I've dealt with for the past 24 years, like my mom's going to die tomorrow and 20 years. Like you just don't know. But when somebody gives you that phone call, you're like, it suddenly felt immediate, which turns out it isn't. It's just a higher level of care and all this other stuff. But, my buddy, he's like, you're exactly where you're supposed to be to deal with this, stay there, have the conversation, stuff like that. So, and I did, and I can tell you this, like, I don't mean this in a bad way, but like when I was on that river, like I didn't think about my mom once. I was like, let's just not die. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, I don't know, like I have a really good support system that helps me with all of that stuff. And so it was good to be like immersed in it to go through, something tough.
Yeah.
So.
And so all this kind of propelled you with all the changes that have happened into a record year.
Yeah, but like unintentional.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but you'll take it.
Yeah. But I mean,
from the production perspective.
We struggle in this industry. It's like, how did you do it? Well, like sometimes it's hard to quantify. Sometimes it's just the momentum of growth.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes it is better effort. Sometimes it's price points increase. Like there's a lot that go into it. And so I do think in our industry in particular, like sometimes we try to quantify things that are unquantifiable, right? And it's like, just, it's working, go with it to a certain extent.
Yeah.
But yes, but like, so when I was done with all that, I realized about a week and a half ago, I was like, man, like I'm just fatigued and I'm not on top of things, and I had to snap myself out a bit. But I needed that. I feel great now. But I mean, you've done this long enough. You know what it's like where you're just like I'm present, I'm clocked in, I'm doing everything, but
100%.
I'm just not as dialed in as I usually am. I'm just not as hyper-focused as I usually am. And there's no negative results of it, but like for a long term, you eventually will experience negative results. So,
yeah. Well, being a team leader,
yeah,
that you touched on that. I think it's really important. It's something we've talked about in a few of these conversations, but being really good at selling real estate and helping, being a strong realtor is one thing. Being a strong team leader is something altogether different skill sets. I mean, it's a totally different job, really. How have you enjoyed being a realtor versus being a team leader?
I like both. I like they're rewarding in different ways.
Yeah.
I did it way wrong. Like people told me not to do it. I had barely been in the business when I did. I had like 18 months when I started my team.
Okay.
18 months.
That is early.
Yeah. And people are like, hey, this is a bad idea. And I was like, well, you just crushed my dream because I'm going to do it to prove you wrong. It worked out, but they were correct. I was like, it was way too.
You learned the hard way.
I did. And it worked out. But when I built my team, I had a very specific vision. And I see people who are out there, they build teams because they want to make more money, or I see people who build teams because they want to have better work-life balance. Like there's a bunch, or they want to share costs. There's some who are teams in name alone. And I built a team that I wanted to have more availability for my family because at that point I was doing a lot and I needed a way to offload some stuff, right?
It doesn't always work out that way.
Well, no, that's a whole different thing, right? But I wanted to, I felt like I'd been very blessed and I wanted to take care of other people. And I was like, let's start with this and I'll take care of those people who'll be able to take care of more people. And it would increase my ability to touch more people, quite honestly, by creating the correct culture. And so I just don't know if everybody takes it the same way, and I look at, it's not about what I make, it's about what they make. And, to each their own, however they choose to do it. I did this one team thing and they're like, do you run a business or do you run a charity? I was like, I run a charity, but here's the thing that you don't ask it. Like, I'm okay with that. Like, that's what I wanted. I run a charity. My guys work their butt off.
Well, when you say you run a charity, back up and explain that to me.
We don't make a ton of money off of it.
I see what you're saying.
It's as a business model, it's probably just like,
right.
People and I've had people talk to me about it and I'm like, have you ever considered I don't care? Like, that's just how I operate. Like, I don't chase that stuff, right? And as a result, I have something that's amazing and really, really fun.
So it's not about the money.
It's not about the money.
But is it helping with the balance?
It helps with the balance. It helps with my mindset. It's hard to have bad days with a team because it's hard for us all to have a bad day together. And so as long as some of the other ones aren't, it pulls the one who is out.
Yeah.
But to be a team lead, and maybe it's just me and how my brain works, I'm constantly clocked in, unfortunately, because when I clock out as an agent, I clock in as a CEO and a team lead. Yeah. Right. And so I work nonstop in one way or another because I wear multiple hats. Right. And I see team leads who want to get out of production. I like production. I really enjoy production. I think me being in production helps me be a better leader. Absolutely. Because I have a finger on the pulse, right? Really know what's kind of going on in the market. And I just like it. I didn't get into real estate to be a manager, right? Like I got into real estate because I like real estate. So,
Well, why did you get into real estate? Let's back up. I have no idea. I mean, I read an article that was written in Current Carmel.
okay.
And you and I have spoken before, so I know you a little bit, but not a lot. But I learned a few things in that, and so out of college, you were a pharmaceutical sales rep. Is that right? And so you went to IU.
I worked for Nextel at first for like 6 months, and then I pivoted that into a pharmaceutical sales role because I was a TCOM major, but
Okay.
I went to pre-law, but then like you have to
Study law.
yeah, it was the whole thing. It was the whole thing. But anyways, but yeah, I went to IU. Yeah, I went to IU, and then I was a pharmaceutical rep, and then kind of did some other things. So,
Well, and how did real estate come about?
how did real estate come about? My grandpa owned a brokerage out of Martinsville when I was a kid, so I'd been around real estate. Like I can still remember his message on his answering machine. Like when I called to talk to my grandparents, and he'd be like, "Allen and Associates here. Your message is important to us," right? And I'm like, "Oh my gosh," it's like still burnt into my head. Like 40 years later.
Does your voicemail sound just like that?
I don't know. I refuse to listen to my voicemail.
Oh, you should. Well, okay. Well, I'll listen to let you know.
It's like I refuse to listen to it because like how I hear me is different than like hearing your voicemail. Like if you want to feel horrible about yourself, listen to your voicemail. Like why didn't anybody tell me?
Are you telling me you're not going to watch this?
I won't.
Yes, you will. We'll have a watch party together. It'll be great.
It would make me vomit.
Oh, yeah.
No, I won't. Mainly because like, what's the point of it? To me, it's like I'm either going to feel good about myself or less than about myself, and like I need to stay right in the middle. That's where I operate the best.
Fair enough.
I've always liked architecture. Like, you kind of get sold a false bill of goods. Like, I did listen to Mark's, right? Mark Branch. And he said that. He's like, you get sold a false bill of goods coming into this. And I was like, man, that's really good because that's insanely accurate.
Yeah.
I do like houses. I do like architecture, all this stuff. That's not what this job is about.
Not at all. I mean, slightly, but not much.
Slightly, but it's like 10% of the job,
Yeah.
right? And I had destroyed my life. I hadn't worked in a year. I resigned my position at the Department of Veterans Affairs. I'd spent a lot of time, a lot of faults trying to get sober, all this other stuff.
And when you say destroyed your life, I want to come back to all that. But you're talking about getting sober.
Yeah. So I wanted a guy who was on my team, actually. I was talking to him, and he said something about like recovery that really impacted me. But then he had also gotten into real estate, and it just kind of like piqued some interest in me. And so I started looking into it, and I knew I had to start my life all over, and I wanted something that had flexibility and potentially gave me the ability to be open about who I was. And so that's why I kind of got into it, was to be open about who I am and flexibility. I got one of those two, right? Because like you have flexibility in the beginning, but then you have like none, right?
Even in the beginning, if you're going to build the business as quickly as you may want to, there's not as much flexibility as you might think there is. Anytime I'm interviewing someone and I ask them why they want to get into real estate and they tell me flexibility, I start thinking, here we go.
Yep. I mean, I did an open house every Sunday for like 18 months, Like one of the reasons I built the team is I wanted some of my Sundays back to spend with my family. That makes sense, right? Like that's kind of part of it. And then it's just kind of like, I didn't expect any of this. I still don't understand it all to this day, quite honestly. So, I don't know.
So right away, did you like it? Like, so there were reasons why you got into it, but what, then you got it. You started with Tucker? You're with Tucker now?
Yeah, I've always been with Tucker.
Okay.
Yeah.
And why'd you choose Tucker at the time?
So I had this big goal. I was going to go interview with a bunch of places, right? Because you don't know, right? And I live like really close to like the Geist office, the Tucker Geist office. Is going to go to Berkshire, is going to go to like C21, all these places, right? All the major brokerages, because I didn't even know about smaller brokerages at that time, right? I don't think there's enough education about that stuff. And my friend who was doing real estate, he's like, just do me a favor, come to my office first, and interview with them. And so I did. And I never interviewed with anybody else because I was like, it's going to help me with accountability. I passed 4 Tucker offices to get to this office. And that I was concerned if I was too close, I would like come home at lunch.
Okay.
And not work. And so I was like, I need a drive for a commitment. And then I just never left because I like that office. They don't have a sales board, so I don't have to look at like I'm better than or less than. And like, it's just really cohesive, kind of like what you got, like we've talked about that before.
Yeah.
And I told them I was going to be honest about who I was, and they were like really supportive of it. Now, I talked to people, and we've talked about this before, where it's like a lot of brokerages would have been supportive, and I was like, that's really convenient to say now that it has worked out.
True. Really, that 100% true.
You know. So, but yeah. So, and that's just, and I've just been happy, and it's like, well, that's what's working, and they have treated me insanely well and supported me and everything, even like the article in Current, you know, putting a lot of stuff out there.
Yes.
And I routinely put a lot of stuff out there.
Yeah.
That potentially, you know, in the wrong light could go poorly, and they just like stood by me. So.
And that's not going poorly. I think the amount of respect you have for being honest and forthright with, and let's get into that. So, and you're even built your team around the whole concept, but so how you went into recovery, or, you know, how did drugs or alcohol or a combination thereof, how did that all get to where you are today?
Drugs are bad. They messed up my life. I don't know, man. I was just a high school kid. You know, I'm from a small town. We just did stuff. I wasn't exposed to like.
You grew up in Martinsville.
I grew up in Martinsville. I wasn't exposed to dangerous stuff by no means. You know, just like drinking in high school, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure.
Like it escalates a little bit into, you know, like smoking weed, stuff like that, right? But when I went to college, I got introduced to opiates, and like that changed my life forever because, you know, people like me, we like have a neuroses, like this overactive mind. And I did those things because I want to be cool and fit in, and my insecurities and all this other stuff. But like I found along the way, this added benefit of it slowed my brain down at night so I could actually sleep. Okay. And then it just got kind of layered, and that led to me being addicted to opiates for like 19 years from the age of 18 to 37, which, you know, just eventually progressed. And this is why I had like really good jobs, you know.
18 to 37.
18 to 37. Wow. Daily opiate abuse. Okay. And, you know, got married, had kids, good jobs, all these other things. And it just caught up with me because I never did any internal work because I kept trying to like fill this void that I had in me. And then honestly, it got more difficult to find things. Things got very expensive. I had a large habit that cost a lot of money. And then I got...
and this is when you're in pharmaceutical sales? Or
this is like when I'm like 35. Like, I mean, like, yeah, like this is...
What were you doing at this point?
I was at the Department of Veterans Affairs.
Okay.
Right. And I remember going to like purchase pills, and I bought some. They were fake. You know what I mean? That was a thing for a while.
Okay.
And I'd been around worse stuff, and I'd always I've just said, no, I'm like, hey, I'm not like that. You know, I just take these things. You right. Enjoy life. And he set some heroin in front of me. He's like, I don't even actually know what to do with this. Like, I don't even know how to ingest this, right?
Right.
And he's like, some people snort it. Like, within a month, I was snorting 3 grams a day. Within 6 months, I was homeless in an IVs, or, you know, like it just escalated very rapidly. And it was just really, really bad. And so it was just like a natural progression. I know that sounds really odd to say, but like, you just start getting deeper and deeper where you're around things that become more and more normal.
Yep.
And so it just felt like, oh, okay. And then it's like, oh, it's cheaper. This is more cost effective. I won't get in as much trouble. Like, there won't be as much money missing. And then next thing you know, like, you're resigning a position because you're not performing at work, and you're constantly sick. You're not being present for your family. You know, you're missing at times. And it was really hard for me to get sober. I went to rehab like 7 times in 11 months, you know. I was getting divorced. Like a lot of stuff went really bad, really, really quickly. And yeah, that's just how it turned out. But like, it's weird, you know, because my wife and I had a whole conversation about this. Like, you know, like, are you okay with me being this open? And she was, which is Awesome. Amazing.
Yes.
And so we get to help a lot of people. She gets to talk to other spouses. I get to help a lot of people. I bet I get once a month. Like, I get a lot of phone calls, right? But
Well, people know, and so they come to you.
right. And so people in our industry, like I get like random messages and stuff, and it's beautiful. And I love to help people with that stuff. But
I read in that.
really hard. It was really hard. And especially when you start throwing out words like heroin,
Yeah.
like there's a connotation with that.
Yeah.
Like, let's just say it for what it is.
Yeah.
So then there was a whole thing when I did that article.
Yeah.
I'd been really open and I'd always said opiates. And so to like really get more transparent, I had to take my children into consideration of like any kind of feedback or flack they would.
That was a question I was thinking about. So how have you handled it with your kids?
Man, that'll get me emotional.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
You don't have to apologize. I'm a big believer in crying. It's okay. To me, crying is strength.
I agree.
So
How old are your kids again?
they're 15 and my daughter's about to be 11.
Okay.
So when I got sober, they were 8 and 4, right? Like, my daughter doesn't really remember anything. My son does have some memories. He'll say stuff like, "Hey, you remember your one buddy? Like, he was really cool." I was like, "Yeah, we'll never see him." But you know, my kids have been around such a dynamic group of people because I sponsor a lot of men and all this other stuff, and I do a lot of recovery stuff, and so my kids actually are some of the most well-adjusted kids I've ever met because they don't judge anybody. And so
Absolutely.
my son is like, your courage to be open about who you are gave him the courage to be open about who he is. So I'd say it's turned out pretty freaking good.
No kidding.
And I always tell him, I'm like, if somebody says something to you, just come tell me because like I'll kick the rats. Like, I have a checkered past. Like, I know people.
Has that ever happened?
Never once.
Exactly. I mean,
Never once.
it's
It's an insecurity of a fear that doesn't exist, but that's how fear works, right?
absolutely. So, I mean, no question they've come out stronger for all this, and so have you. What I was going to say a minute ago is in that current article, it said you had sponsored 85 people at that time, and so that's a lot of people there.
It's like 130 now.
130?
A lot.
Yeah.
My wife told me I had to take a break from it for a little bit, actually.
What all goes into sponsoring someone? I don't even know how.
Oh, man. So I gotta be careful, like I don't want to bring programming into your startup because I'm not allowed to. But like I take people, like I work a 12-step program. You take people through the steps, you dive into their emotions. I take phone calls on a daily basis. I help them navigate their lives, stabilizing their lives while at the same time working on what's inside of them that is causing some of these issues, the neuroses, like it's a disease, right? So you have to understand what you're dealing with. Then you have to look at like all these things that have built up over the years, resolve them, learn how to work on your character defects of, greed, pride, ego, lust, whatever it may be. And so like there's just a lot of internal work that comes with it and a lot of really deep dives and sharing of a lot of trauma and bad things and getting it out, like sharing the weight so it doesn't, like a problem shared is like half the load, right?
Yeah.
And just stuff like that. A lot of phone calls, a lot of people, relapsing, going back out and helping them still and showing up and
I mean, between that and real estate and your business, your team's business, the sponsorships, family, I could go on. How the heck do you manage it all? How hard is time management?
good and bad. You know what I mean? Like, it's just my life. So I just don't I get a phone call and somebody's struggling or threatening self-harm. Like, my wife knows the deal. I'm like, it's midnight and I'm like, hey, I gotta go. And my wife's like, all right, I'll see you when you get home. Like, I have an understanding family, first of all. But I don't know, like, I am constantly busy. I'm constantly having fun. I'm constantly present. I did a lot of time for 19 years sitting on a couch, just being under the influence, or a lot of time being in bed sick. And like, I always laugh at people when they say like they don't have time. I was like, I am slammed, and I have time. Exactly. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like a 7 a.m. to midnight guy, and I do just fine with it, and I have plenty of time for everything. Am I spread thin? Yes. Does it feel like it at times? At other times, like, man, like I got the best life in the world. Like, I don't know why you guys aren't doing more. There's so much room to fill. And to me, it's like, it's a life well lived. Yeah. You know, like I don't want to have any regrets that I didn't do something with my kids or my wife, because like I was sitting on my ass, like watching football. You know what I mean? Like I figured out when I got sober, I don't play for the team and they don't care. You know what I mean? Right. Like we were talking about sports, like back in the day, like you remember like IU would lose or something, or the Colts would lose.
I'm a Purdue fan, so I don't give a shit if IU loses.
That's fair.
But anyway, go
Tables have been turned this year.
Oh, no kidding.
I use a football team all of a sudden.
Right.
I use a basketball team all of a sudden. Yeah, it's crazy. But like I'd have a bad day. You know, like if like one of my teams lost, and like I just don't like, that's insane to me. Like when people are like, Colts lost, I had a bad day. I was like, yeah, just like went along with the rest of my day because like I don't play for them.
Right.
Like I'm not actually impacted here.
Yeah, you've had bigger fish to fry.
Yeah, so I do think recovery and going through what I've gone through, and I think this is true for anybody who's gone through something major. I can just have a perspective on life that's different of what like really matters. Yeah, I love football. I love basketball. I like playing it. I love the entertainment value of it. But like that's where it starts and stops with me.
Fair enough.
You know, it just is. Big sports guy, but.
We just saw Al Horford.
Dude,
so, I mean, you were kind of excited by that. I just wanted to say, like,
Yeah,
you're obviously still a sports fan.
I'm a massive sports fan.
The Celtics are playing the Pacers tonight, so yeah, it was cool seeing Al Horford right out front of the restaurant.
I want to be I was sitting there looking at you. I was like, do I go be a fanboy? I'm like, hey, Al, can I get a picture? And like you acted too casual. I was like, man, I'm just a nerd. You know, I don't think so. Like an 8-year-old.
Definitely, we should have got up and given him a high five. Yeah,
I would have had to jump. But
yeah.
I don't know, man. Like I just think the perspective of what I have. I don't know, man. Like I feel like I do have time. The other thing is like I feel like I have time to do more actually. And that's the scariest thing.
I think I've said this quote on this in here before, but I'll say it again. My favorite Benjamin Franklin quote: "If you want something done, find a busy person."
Yeah,
you're walking that.
Yeah, because you become so solution oriented. That like problems aren't a big deal because it's like everybody's got problems. There's always problems. Like what are solutions, right? Like that's what recovery taught me. That's what my friends have taught me. That's what the world has taught me. I don't care about problems. I care about solutions because there's always one. Now sometimes that solution is just to accept it and it sucks. That's still a solution.
Yep,
right.
That is.
Yeah.
Commission Row offers an unforgettable dining experience with high-quality steaks, a raw bar, and exquisite seafood curated by an expert culinary team. The menu, designed to delight every palate, features seasonal ingredients paired with an extensive wine and spirit selection. Open weekdays from 4 p.m. and for brunch at 10 a.m. on weekends. Continue the evening at Mel's Speakeasy below. After dining, enjoy an after-dinner drink with a wide selection of wines, cocktails, and spirits. Open daily from 5 p.m., Mel's is perfect for relaxing and unwinding. Commission Row and Mel's Speakeasy. An unforgettable dining experience awaits.
Is that one of the things you like about real estate? I mean, oftentimes it's a puzzle you're trying to put together, and there's plenty of problems that need solved. I mean, you enjoy the problem-solving aspect of it?
I mean, I guess I don't enjoy problem transactions.
No, that's true. But you might enjoy solving them.
I do enjoy solving. I really do. I think it's because I've done enough work on myself. I don't get emotional.
Yeah.
And I can look at it rationally. I think it's one of the things in our industry. I see a lot of agents get emotional.
Oh, yeah.
Like I instantly, or like competitive or whatever. And I'm like, man, like you're just so easy to be manipulated right now and you don't know it.
Right.
Which is not serving your client's best interests. But I do like that. I think the thing I like the best is that every day is different. When I worked at the VA and I worked in a cubicle, I could get more done than most people in a day in 3 hours if you let me get up and go around and talk to people, right? Because it's just my brain.
You need that outlet.
I need that. When they'd be like, hey, Kyle, like, you need to sit at your desk more, I would get less done in 8 hours. I could have in the 3 hours if you just let me wander around, right? And so I really like that every day is different, and it makes me feel like I live life to its fullest because nothing is really repetitive. And I can't put a dollar amount on that. I
No.
really can't. So
That's
my favorite part about it.
That's a good favorite part.
People. I mean, obviously the people, like that's the answer. Like
And that's part of what makes the variety.
I meet different people every single day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you also have a podcast.
I do.
And how long you been doing that? What's it called again?
Indie housing market. It's been two things. We've been doing it since like COVID. I mean, you say I've been doing like 3.5 years.
How'd that start?
I got asked. Shelly, who's a good friend of mine, Shelly Walters is like really pushed me. I've got a couple of people who've like really pushed me in the industry to like do more, like Nancy Smith, pushed me to like get more involved in like MyBor, and I did Real Academy and all this other stuff. And Shelly has really pushed me in that direction. And she asked me like to be on this podcast, and I enjoyed doing it. It made me a better agent because I had to look at data nonstop. It gave me a better pulse of the market. And then we kind of switched it up because we wanted to be able to talk a little bit more freely. And so she and I've done, we just have whoever on. I wish we did more of like this.
Mm-hmm.
But like I also do, like we have a lot of agents that listen to it, and especially newer agents. Like I want to educate them so our failure rate isn't as low.
Yeah,
Right?
I think it's really educational, and the data that a lot of agents are not looking at, or they probably have access to it, they're not finding it. So you're providing it. I think it's great.
Yeah, just listen to it. I always tell steal our stats. I don't care.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's what it's there for. But I enjoy doing it. It's fun. I got to meet a lot of people. I get to talk to a lot of people. And it makes me more knowledgeable. And like to me, like I'm constantly seeking to learn. And so it's just a net win for me, quite honestly. And I love Shelly to Beth. And so you just have fun.
Are you putting a lot of prep into it? Like
Put a lot of prep into the numbers.
That's what I mean.
Similar to this, like I think it flows better when it is natural and it's a dialogue. I will say beforehand, kind of similar to this, where like there's a lot of dialogue up front when you're just kind of like sit down and you're like, oh crap, we should be doing this on the show. Like we do that every week.
Absolutely.
Like, oh, we should be doing that. We should be taping this, right? But what it has done is it's made me comfortable doing this stuff. So like, I can just sit down and we can start talking because I'm not intimidated by the mics or this, it's one episode. There will be another one. Like not every episode is great, like it just is what it is. So not every episode you've done, I'm sure is. I mean, this will be your wish one, so that's easy.
Yeah, but this will be one of the best ones. What are you talking about? So with real estate, you said 2024 has been a record year. I'll ask you a few questions maybe about some of the changes that have happened. So here in the last month or two, couple months now, we've been dealing with the settlement changes. And have you seen much of anything in the having to use a buyer broker agreement or
I have to use one?
Yeah, that's true. But so what would you say the net effect of all this has been so far, in your opinion, at least for you and your business?
0.
That would almost be my answer. It's darn close.
Yeah. I mean, some conversations.
Yeah.
I've never struggled for a client to understand my value.
Right.
And I mean, like there's training for days this year about understand your value. It's like, I know my value and my clients know my value. And it's so easy to communicate. Like, I don't have to get into this layering of like I just don't. Like, I just think there's a knowledge base that comes like I'll just tell you who I am and I'm either for you or I'm not for you. Right. Like that's my value is like, I know what I'm doing. I do a lot of it.
A lot of agents don't know their value.
Yeah.
Why should someone use you?
Why should somebody use your trust? I mean, that's what we sell more than anything, in my opinion, is just trust.
Totally.
So
that's what we're not selling houses. We're selling trust.
100%. And I think that's where a bunch of agents mess up. There's all this talk about like, what's your listing presentation look like and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But I don't use one. Like I go in and I get to know somebody. And I sell against all of you guys that do that. Because I can literally point out you guys are all a dime a dozen bringing in the same crap because you do.
Right.
I sell trust and I'm either for you or I'm not for you, man. But like, I'll tell you this, like, I'm not presumptuous. And like, if you want to use me, great. Like, I would love to work with you. And like, that's all it's about. Because if you're good and you know your craft, like, it's all similar. I mean, there's a little bit here, you know, somebody may do a little bit here that they don't do here, and somebody else makes up for it here. But all of the successful agents, they're good and professional. And like, that's where it stops. Now, if you're newer, how do you do that? You can still be good and professional, which will lead to the success, right? Like, you don't have to portray that differently. You got to be patient. That's all it comes down to. But we live in a society and an industry where people struggle with patience. You know, I wasn't a top producer my first year, you know, like,
Nobody is. Really, almost nobody. Literally almost nobody. There's very
one in each office.
Right. Yeah, it's very hard.
I'm glad I struggled. You know, people are like, how about you just stay sober? Like, we'll worry about houses in a couple of years. And I'm glad I went through that. I'm glad I struggled through that. It made me perfect my craft.
How long did it take before you started making enough money where you could call it a career?
Well, when you go from zero, it's pretty quick. Like, anything is better than $0.
True.
Right?
But it's not established career. When did you feel like you had established a career?
When I built the team, I thought it was going to work out, but you know, I was like, it could also pivot the other way. I would say around year 2.5.
That's pretty quick.
Yeah,
That's good.
We went from like 3 million to 8 million to 19 million to like 29, 28. Like, we've been all around this like high 20s, low 30s for like the past couple of years. So yeah, pretty quickly. I also grew rather rapidly, so and had some headaches and stuff with that, but pretty quickly. But honestly, like, when I got sober, I think one of the reasons I succeeded is because I wasn't afraid to fail. I don't think most people are afraid to fail. I already had like, if I fail, like, we'll just do this, we'll just do that. And I don't mean like I had a backup plan. Like, it was literally set up to not fail. Because I told my wife, I was like, and when I go talk to new agents, like, I tell them this, failure rate is like 90% in the first 2 years, something like that.
Yeah.
I was like, so I just have to make it 3 years. By definition, I will have made it. And so like that was my first business plan, was just like being the business. And
That's a good goal.
it is. And so, but my wife and I talked about it, and I was like, hey, what are we going to do to see if this works? And like, we had this really amazing conversation. We're like, well, like, if we're struggling, we'll sell up your car and we'll go buy a cheaper car. And I was like, well, what if it's worse than that? She's like, we'll sell the house, we'll go buy a cheaper house, and then when we succeed, we'll go buy.
You got to keep her there.
Yeah. So, well, she wasn't trying to keep me for a little bit. And so, like, I had a plan to avoid failure. Like, I had already accepted what we could do, and so we just weren't afraid. And so we just went after it. And when I got sober, I was like, if I can just be happy being like a 60-year-old guy delivering pizzas, because like, did you ever deliver pizzas?
I never delivered pizzas. I delivered newspapers.
So like, when I was in high school, like, I did it. There's always this like 60-year-old guy delivering pizzas, like, living his best life. And so I just like pictured myself. I was like, if I can be happy doing that, like, anything else is a win. And so like, when that was like I didn't care about the money
Right.
thing. Like, I was like, this is just what I want to do. And like, we just didn't worry about the finance piece to a certain extent, because we were willing to change or pivot or cut anything that we had to. Honestly, because it was just nice for me to be sober and be back around. Like, that was the win in itself. It wasn't about whether this worked or didn't work. It was like, yeah, he's not going to die. So like, it just had a different bar, I guess. So
You had
made it easy.
You had mentioned that when you talk to new agents, is that something you do with regularity, or is it? Are you in a position that where it's a formal type thing, or?
Yeah, I go into like new agent training, and I talk about mindset, because that's my biggest thing. Everybody wants to talk about all the bells and whistles. Right. I just go in and talk about mindset, because the rest of it, there's always going to be a shiny object. You know, especially real estate agents. They're the worst at getting sold something.
That's true.
In my opinion.
Always the newest gadget, bell and whistle.
Like, I'm not doing this, so I have to do this because clearly there's a hole. Like, I don't know, or maybe you're just doing well. It's okay. But
well, so what do you say regarding mindset? What kind of advice do you have for new agents?
I don't think people are honest enough with themselves about their fears of failure, what they're willing to do to succeed. Honest enough with yourself with, are you really working? I see a lot of people who want to chase a perception.
Oh yeah.
Like when I go and speak, I was like, don't go buy a Range Rover. You know what I mean? Like, first of all, the transmission will go out. Second of all, like you save up for 3 years and then you never have to worry again. Like that's how our job pays in such a weird way. Like if you just sacrifice up front, like you will for sure be successful, right? Because the money never comes into play into any transaction for me because like I'm just good, And like that's how I built my whole team, is to take care of all of them so they operate in that capacity, because that's what I'm supposed to do to best serve my clients, is remove myself. And I just don't think people, they chase like an illusion or a vision or a projection of what they think real estate should be instead of being themselves in real estate because of their own insecurities, or like, I want to be seen as I sell $1 million houses or whatever it is. And you just got to get away from that stuff, and you have to just know who you are, be who you are. Because oddly enough, like what has been the most successful for me is that I'm genuine and transparent. Like that's insane that is a business model. That should be normal. And like, I just try to teach people that, and I try to teach them financial literacy. I try to teach them the only reason you fail in this industry is because you'll quit. That's it. It's literally textbook. And so when people coming into this industry and they're like, who has a backup plan? And like everybody who raises their hand, I'm like, then just go do it now, because you've already anticipated failure. And like, I just think mindset is everything in life in general, but I think it's what creates success within this. It's not your reels. It's not your marketing strategy. It's not, your mailers and your pop buys. Like all of that stuff is layered, but like you have to have a mindset of like, when I first started in real estate, this is kind of like me bouncing all over the place, but
Wow,
given a form that said, and I still talk to Tucker about this today, says, I will have tomorrow what others don't, because I will do today what others won't. And so it's like, they're like, how are you successful? I listened for other people to say no so I could say yes. Like who wants to go hold open a $20,000 house? I will. Who wants to go drive to Warsaw for showings? I will. You know what I mean? Like I've sold in Clinton, I've sold in Louisville, Warsaw, showed in Evansville, sold in Brown. Like, what are we doing here? Like if you say no, I'm going to say yes. And that by definition probably means I have at least a slightly better success rate than you. And like, that's all I need is like this 1% every day. And people just don't do, people are lazy. They're lazy. I'm like, what else am I going to do, man? Like, now you're living life. I'm a freaking real estate agent. This is a career. This is a job. This isn't a hobby.
There's some hobbyists out there.
There is. And that's okay. But temper your expectation for success. Right? Like you don't get to sell at convenience and sell $10 million. That doesn't work.
Bingo.
It just doesn't. And so something has to give. And so if you can teach that and inspire that, and like even in my office, like people come into my office and sit down, like I have an open door, and like, like, give little pep talks, man, pat them on the butt, send them back in the game, like you just tear down apart like whatever insecurity or fear they're dealing with, and like, let's go, let's get after there, man. Like I'm very transparent. Like there's nothing special about me. Like if I can do this, you can do this. You just got to think differently. I'm not the smartest guy. I mean, I'm an idiot. Like I got good grades and stuff, but I'm not tall. I'm average in every aspect. Like I just changed how I think, and that's what bred success, because I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid. When you've lost everything, you're not afraid of losing everything. And so I make decisions different. I see people chase money. If you're chasing money, you haven't lost enough yet to know that it means nothing.
Wow.
Right? And so like I just go out there and do what I can, take care of people, have a good life. I do well for myself. What are we talking about here, man? I see people like want to build generational wealth. And I was like, like I sponsor the kids of generational wealth. Just, like this doesn't always work out well for everybody. I don't know, man. I don't know.
You touched briefly in there about social media.
Yeah. Okay.
How how much is social media part of your business plan?
Massive.
And how are you leveraging it? By being yourself.
Yeah, that's literally it. It's myself. Step into my insecurities. I don't like doing, not a big selfie guy and not a big video guy. Like I'm not a big fan of my, like you're like, hey, you look normal. I'm like, I don't know, like, like I have my own insecurities. It is what it is, right? But when I'm honest about who I am, and I don't show real estate. Like, people don't want to use me because I sell real estate. They use me because they connect with me, and then they know I sell real estate.
Yep.
And I see agents who just want to be like, closing day and all this other crap. And like when I was new, I was doing that stuff. And I had a closing, and I was writing with my wife, like, oh crap, I got to post about my closing. And my wife was like, you know what I don't do? I don't post a picture of my paycheck every 2 weeks. And I was like, oh shit. That's how it's received. It doesn't matter what I'm doing. It's like, how does the consumer receive it? So it changed everything about how I viewed social media.
Your wife's pretty smart.
Other than her decision making of sticking with me, right? Everybody says that, and I'm like I was a shit show, guys. You know what I mean? But no, she's an amazing human. So like that really resonated with me, and then I started like. It gave me pause, and I started thinking, I was like, you know what I don't see like Biff doing, or like Carrie Schuster, or like, these people that when I was new, Diane Brooks and Carrie Hawley and Mike Deck, like everybody wants to be them. And I don't see them posting closing day pics. You know why? Because they just close all the time.
Right.
And I was like, okay, so this is not about my intents, but like how are things being received? And I think it matters, like I think luxury is a very dangerous thing in our current economic environment, right? There's a lot of people struggling out here, and to be touting luxury like that, like, I mean, we live in Indianapolis in the Midwest, like be cognizant.
So true.
And people just don't think about that stuff, and it's based in your own insecurities. And like, I want to be successful. I want to be seen as successful. I think our industry struggles with validation because you do feel alone and there is competition. Well, like I don't validate through my job, so I don't need that stuff to be validated.
I think all the time about something an agent said to me one time about why they don't look at a lot of other agent stuff. And she said, because comparison is the thief of joy. And
yeah,
there's a lot of agents that they just can't get past the comparisons.
And that inherently contributes to a failure rate.
Right.
Like, what world do I exist in where you can't succeed and I succeed?
100%.
When I was new and I wasn't doing as well, like I tell the story, like I took a different ride home from work, and like, when you take your usual route, like you just don't notice anything because it's like muscle memory. And I drove a different way, and I was like, there are houses everywhere. Like, the problem isn't that people were like buying or selling. It's like, they don't know who I am. And like, I just need more people to know who I am. And I'm allowed to do well, and other people do well too. Like, if I've lost a couple, like maybe 4 listings in my career, which is a low amount.
That's pretty low considering how long you've been in real estate now.
7 years.
Yeah, only.
I mean, about like 100 a year, right? So now it's not all listings, right? But
sure.
I will never go back and look at that house. I will not look at what it gets priced for. I will not look at whether it sells or doesn't sell. I will not look at the agent, because there is literally no good that comes from that. I'm either going to feel better than or less than.
Right.
And like, I got to go to the next thing, But to the social media thing, I don't know. Like, people want to live vicariously through like our job. Everybody's very curious about it.
Yeah.
And so it's like, people don't care about your closing day. They want to know about your Tuesday. Like, what are you doing? And like, I'm open about like struggling, I'm open about like mental health, or like I'm open about like, like I'm just an idiot, or like, and I celebrate my wins. Like, I'm just me, and I don't put anything out there but like me being genuine. And like, it's just not that big of a deal. It's just not. And
But that authenticity is a big deal.
It is.
It separates you.
Yeah, but it's just me being nice.
I mean,
It doesn't feel like a thing.
Yeah, no,
You know?
but most people are, as you said, they're too afraid.
They are too afraid. And that makes me really sad. It really does.
Well, I bet you anything that you might change a few people's minds here today when they watch this.
Dude, I talk to agents from other brokerages, like they reach out, and I mean, I'm just trying to help people, man. Like, it doesn't even matter about real estate. Like, this stuff will hold you back in general.
Yes.
With connecting with people, right? Like, it's the whole purpose of life is connecting with people. And I don't know, like, I just think social media, and it doesn't help in the election cycle, right? Like, I remember thinking, I have to quit being a consumer of social media. It is a tool for me to use for my business. I choose to use it by showing my full self. But I do not consume social media.
And is that still the case?
I have ups and downs. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we all have it though.
I remember it being like, I was sitting in there and they're teaching you all this stuff. And like, I was still like, I was newly sober. Like when I got into the business, like I took my licensing when I had like 5 months sober. I got licensed when I had 6 months sober, right? And like, I was still doing a lot of work on myself. And I had all these insecurities. And I was like, well, Jim Litton's a business owner. Like, what would he do? And so I had this like whole, like, what would Jim Litton do thing?
Okay.
And I was like,
does Jim know this, by the way?
I think so. Like, I've talked about it a bunch. I've never like told him directly, but, and I was like, this is what Jim would do. He would just post because he's a business owner. And so it allowed me to not take ownership of something I was doing, and remove my own emotions and stuff.
Okay.
And then like, it's just worked ever since, you know, and I'm like, this is what we do, this is how we do it. But it is difficult to not get trapped up in consuming it. Yeah. But I can tell when I am because I can tell my attitude changes. And that's like, you gotta be able to pivot.
Yeah.
Like I should not feel unhappy for your win. That's insane. That is absolutely insane. That like you're having a good day and I'm like, would I want one too? Well, like I just had one. Like, what are we talking about? You know?
There's enough business for a lot of people to be happy.
Oh my gosh. Like there's plenty.
Exactly.
There's absolutely plenty. I think that hurts our business too. Like, how many great agents have you met that never got the opportunity to be great agents because they quit first?
Quite a few. There's so many that just never, for one reason or another, it might be on them, it might not be, but they just never got, I always call it getting over the hump.
Yeah. Something got in there, right?
Yeah.
And they started to question themselves, and
or they ran out of money, or it was mindset.
Finances is a big part.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of reasons. Sometimes, just like in any profession, where particularly when you're starting your own business, there are times where you need to catch a couple lucky breaks, and
or make decisions that are uncomfortable.
Yeah,
of sacrifices.
Yes,
you know?
And that's really interesting how much you and your wife had thought ahead of, okay, if we get to this point, we'll sell the car. If we get to this point, we'll sell the house. I mean, that's a commitment.
Yeah.
You know, and really interesting what you said about not having a plan B. There's a lot of research that shows that the success rate of someone who goes into something with no plan B is significantly higher than someone that has a plan B, because you're all in. This was my plan B. Yeah, right. Right. Plan C. We aren't going to talk about that.
What are we talking about?
So what now? What where do you want to go with all this? With real estate, I mean, that's a broad question, but do you have any particular goals with your team, with your business?
No, I fought it for a couple of years. Mainly because I'm a problem solver. And so I'm like, what's next? Right? Like I'm an addict, right? Like more, right? Like, let's grow, let's do this. I have actively fought growth for a couple of years. I think when you and I talked before, I've talked to you about that. You know, I turn away people from the team a lot, because I'm happy. And like, I just don't know what that looks like. And I have been very lucky that I have people who will talk to me from other brokerages and all this stuff who are like in a position of where I want to go. And they have been transparent and honest with me for the most part.
What do you mean by that? What kind of conversations?
What does it look like? What does it look like? What's your work-life balance? Like, I know for a fact I could grow.
Yeah.
I know for a fact, like, I could grow and go do, like, literally, like, 60, 80 million type stuff. Like, I can bring people on. Like, it is what it is.
At what cost?
Why? Why? To appease the masses? Like, I'm already, like, outkick the coverage so much. It's insane. Like, I should be dead. I have a lot of friends who are dead, unfortunately. And I'm over here being like, I want to impress a bunch of people that don't even know me. And so, like, I just want to be happy. I have that. I also knew that I was struggling with it, so I made myself sit in it to work on myself. And I honestly don't know. I did tell myself, because my dad passed away this year, that I would make no changes. Like around August, I was like, all right, I think I'm good enough. Like I could, but now I'm holding myself true to what I said or felt. And I don't know. My team is really happy with where we're at. And they know this, I'm really transparent with them. Like sometimes I just get bored and I want to like fidget with stuff and like,
Sure.
Let's do this. I don't know what it looks like. I know that I work in an industry that is constantly preaching growth because I don't know what else to preach. And it's a never ending thing, right? Like I can always tell you, what's next? Well, let's grow. Let's figure it out. What if it's like learn how to be happy with what you currently have and learn how to have a broader reach and impact more people? When I got sober, like all I wanted back was my family, right? Like, I don't care about the rest of this. Like, I already got that. And when I look, I've told people this, when I look at some of our really, and like, I don't mean this in like a condescending or a mean way or any of that stuff. Like, this is me being honest and transparent of what I see. When I look at the top producers in my industry, I can count on one hand who isn't divorced. And some of them have spouses who work for them. That has probably prevented divorce. And I'm like, what am I trying to do? Like, this is what mattered. I don't need you telling me what matters because, like, I'll grab hold of it. I'll go chase that. And I don't know how to stop. So I'll be like a freight train to get there. And then I'll look back at a dust of wreckage. And it will be so empty. But I'll get so hyper-focused on a goal, like, I'll just bulldoze everything. And like I'm trying to figure out how to do both, and I know it exists because there are examples where it exists.
You are doing both.
I mean, like if I were to double or where I'm at is insanely perfect, right? I don't know if I'm ready for that.
Right.
Like I'll wait till my kids go to college. Like what am I in a rush for?
Yeah.
We do fine. We're going to be fine. Like when I operate from a place that I'm always going to be okay, like I'm okay. I'm going to be okay if I stay here. I'm going to be okay if I lose the whole thing. I'm going to be, there's the counter argument. I'll be okay if it grows. I don't know what that okay is going to look like. And I'm not okay with that currently because I'm not willing to like lose this other piece.
Right.
And I don't know, man. I've talked to like national people like help me with this stuff. And most of the time what I get is they can help me do it, but they're going to change me. And I don't want to do that. I'm not going to.
They're openly saying that, or you're just seeing that?
I'm seeing it based on what they say of how they want to change my business.
Got it.
Right. Like it's implied.
Yeah.
And I get that. I'm in a bandwidth situation, but I'm happy.
Yeah.
I'm insanely happy. Like we have so much fun. We do so much together and just joke and like blah, blah, blah. Like we're just really a good group. And I want to bring more people on, but like I'm very specific about who comes on. And I don't need to because I'm just happy. I made the mistake, and it didn't work out, and I wasn't happy. So I don't have an answer for that.
Well, no, you had a great answer for that. Before we wrap it up, tell me about your team.
What about them?
No, what makes them so great? Why you like them? How they ended up on the team? Just how many people do you have on your team right now?
Currently, I have 3. Okay. I got 3 underneath me. Yeah, I've dabbled in transaction coordinator and social media, and the problem inherently lies with me. Like, I have to get these people to do things. You know what I mean? I'm like, I don't have time for this. But I've had 6 at one point. My current team, I generally bring on new agents.
Okay.
I only have one agent who was not a new agent, and it was the guy who got me into real estate in the first place, right?
Okay.
And so now he's on my team, Jacob. He's been doing it about a year longer than me. Bo is with me from day one. And then Ben, he's been doing it a year and a half, something like that, a little bit over a year. And what makes us great is who they are as humans.
Yeah.
Honestly, because we're really good about we know contracts, right? It's when I talk to my team members, I want to get a transaction coordinator and blah blah blah, and they're like, "What do you mean? We know the contracts?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's fair, but everybody says we should have one, right?" And I'm like, "No, my people know their contracts. It's a bigger inconvenience to layer in somebody than for them to just handle it." And we have fun and we joke and we hold each other accountable. And, we bicker something. We're brothers. We bicker sometimes, but we always circle back. We don't hold grudges. We talk it out. I never built this team as being something about people in recovery. I was just I'm in recovery. I also happen to sell real estate. Or more, it's I sell real estate. I also happen to be in recovery. Everybody on my team is currently in long-term recovery. So we all think very similarly. My whole business is built around principles of recovery, if that makes sense, of honesty and truthfulness and faith and all these other things. But we in particular have shared history, first of all, shared trauma, all of that stuff. And it just works. Everybody's good at something different, so it lifts us all up together. And I can't really tell you why each person is on the team other than they're my friends and I love them. And I was like, how do I enrich their lives? And that's what we did. They all produce, they all do well. They all help me with my shortcomings. I help them with theirs. I push them. They push me, which I is really appreciated. I'm not infallible just because, it's my team. I'm open to that. I'm very open with, they have input. And I ask for them to give me grace to make mistakes. So, if I bring somebody on or do something, give me 6 months. If it doesn't work, I will pivot. And then every time I have, they give me that grace to make mistakes as a leader. And it's just really kind of intimate, I guess, under that guise. And as a result, we're just really, really connected. I've had normal people on my team. Normal people are great. It's just kind of coincidental that I don't right now. It's never an intent for it to be built that way.
Right.
It just happens to be. And I think it's a little bit, like minds attract like minds, I guess. But I don't know. I don't even know what else I could say good about them other than
you guys are doing something cool together.
They're all workers.
Okay.
They're all hard workers. They're not afraid to get dirty and do stuff and help. And, hey, it's 10 o'clock at night and clients running behind and needs help moving. We'll roll deep.
Yeah.
It isn't a Kyle problem or a Jacob problem or a Bo problem. Bo's been on my team the longest. I like bringing on new agents because you get to teach them in a different way. Jacob's different because he helped teach me actually in the industry. So we speak the same language anyways. When I built the team, I was like, how do you keep successful agents? I know there's a lot of team leads who are out there and they're like, my whole goal is to get you out on your own. And I'm like, that sounds like I'm constantly training people.
Right.
And that's not what I wanted to do. It's like, how do I keep successful agents? And the reality of it is like, you have to pay them at a level where they can't make more money elsewhere.
Yep.
Which means you have to make less money. And I was like, well, like, I'm already okay. So who cares? Like, let's just take care of people. And when you have high producing agents who stay because they believe in something, it's just going to work. The problem is when you have high producing agents who don't, or start to think they can do something else elsewhere, which they most likely could, you know what I mean, on certain teams.
Sure.
So like, I just do whatever I can to ensure like this is the happiest place they can be at, unless they just inherently, like if I mess up or inherently there's like becomes like a problem with structure, or who knows what it could be, you know what I mean? But I have lost somebody before that left me, and that was really hard. That was really hard. And they went to an agent who was like, I was selling this idea of like, no, but we're going there. Like, that's where I'm going.
Okay.
But that person was already there. And it's like, yeah, I can't really say nothing. Like, he's been doing it longer. He's a better agent. He's an amazing human being, for the record. And I was like, this hurts, but I have no problem with it, because like I would do it. It's like his tracks. It makes sense.
You're rooting for the best interest of your people. And I know what it's like to lose somebody good and someone you like and someone you care about. It's happened many a time over the years. And
hard.
It's really hard.
Yeah.
But you know, at the end of the day, you
want them to succeed.
You want them to succeed, and you know, if things don't work out, when you treat them right, they'll come back.
They won't.
But
I don't know. It's doing what you do or doing what I do. You know, you manage more than I manage, but I do have to manage, and not everybody's a good leader just because they lead. And like, I take that really, really seriously, being a leader. I have to do the things, like the buck stops here.
yeah,
Financially, it stops with me. Like, if something goes sideways, like, I'll absorb it. Let's go. Like I got to take care of people. Like, that's, you know, heavy rest the crown type thing. And like, I can't ask somebody to do something I won't do myself. And so like, I think people think like, I'm going to be a leader to do less.
right.
Dude, then you got to do more. Like, if you're looking to do less, then just stay doing what you're doing. Like, that's just the reality of it.
It's so true. I've seen so many team leaders that's why they want to be a team leader, to offload and
How to work.
yeah, exactly. I mean, and if you work it right, you might have some help with balance, but you know, you just taking on a different responsibility.
Yeah. You're not driving around as much, but you're still...
Managing yourself and managing other people, two different things.
It is. But it's also the most rewarding thing ever to like watch somebody grow and succeed and then see their life change because of that success. And yes, man, like you just can't put a dollar amount on that, you know? Like, I get to do it in recovery, but then when I realize that I can do it in business, and I mean, you can't explain that kind of a positive ripple effect, because you don't get to decide where it stops. And so that's just all we really focus on as a team. I think that's why it works for us, is like, we put out nothing but positive ripple effects, and all negative ripple effects stop with us. That's how it works. It's what we signed up to do. And that's just worked really well ever since. I don't know. Doesn't mean I don't have bad days, man. Doesn't mean sometimes I don't do some splashing here and there, but I try to do better.
Kyle, I mean, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for sitting down and having a conversation with me. It's been awesome.
We could talk for hours.
We could. I absolutely.
But I feel like we didn't even dive into anything, actually. So
I think we dove into quite a bit, sir.
all right. Well, I appreciate it. Obviously, I have the utmost respect for you. I've always thought you were very genuine and transparent, and I do know the people that you had on. And like, when you called me, I was like, but you have like good people on. Why are you calling me, man?
Really?
I was like, a bunch of people must not have answered before you got to me.
That's actually not the case at all. When you were the first, when season 2, so this is basically season 2. I did 8 episodes in season 1, and the first person I thought of to have for season 2 was you.
Yikes.
That's the truth.
Well, I consider it an honor.
Well, thank you very much.
Because of how I think of you.
It's been, man, listen, you've helped a lot. I mean, I don't know how many people you've helped over the years, but whoever sees or listens to this, you're going to help some more.
Yikes.
It was inspirational. I'm inspired.
He's like over there, like on his.
Am I wrong? Am I wrong?
You put down the energy bank. Oh man. Yeah. No, man. That's a life well lived. People will notice that more than they'll notice if I sell $80 million.
Yeah, they will. They absolutely will.